This presentation discusses the worldwide blight of epidemic of slavery in modern times. Children in India are sometimes born into castes where they are forced to be slaves for the rest of their lives. It is a $35 billion industry with approximately 29.8 million slaves, each slave costing between $90 and $140 per slave. 55% of the slaves are women and children. So, in this presentation, we will identify the problem, view facts and statistics, look at some personal stories, view a map of affected areas, have a call to action, and have a section for questions and answers. Slavery is truly a 21st century evil. So, CBS News did an excellent presentation identifying the problem.
Overlooking the Atlantic Ocean in Benin, a majestic arch marks the point of no return, where through the centuries millions of slaves waited in chains to be shipped to America. But now a modern-day form of slavery has gripped the West African nation again.
I just felt really burdened by the fact that children are being taken into slavery.
Carmen Morris is a Florida businesswoman who's on her third visit to Benin. She's on a personal mission to help end the human trafficking and is building a sanctuary for those children, some as young as 5, who have been rescued by local police from their lives as what she calls slave laborers.
The first trip that we took, 160 children were rescued from child slavery.
According to UNICEF, the overall numbers are staggering. 1.2 million children are trafficked each year worldwide, 50,000 of them in Benin alone. Many are sold by their parents.
Poverty is a problem here in Benin, as it is in almost all of Africa, and it's poverty that's fueling the slave trade, forcing parents to either sell their children to traffickers on purpose or inadvertently.
Traffickers will often swoop on the poor remote villages offering money for the children or promising paying jobs in bigger cities like nearby Cotonou or Lagos, Nigeria. In Benin, the children are put to work by local traders in bustling markets, selling everything from soda to a local delicacy, barbecued bush rats. Morris is determined to do what she can to stop the cycle. Sometimes the job is overwhelming.
You know, you've been hearing these stories for 3 years, and you just can't stop feeling.
And as the ground is broken on her new sanctuary for lost children, Carmen knows she'll be back. Jennifer Santiago for CBS News, Benin.
There are various types of slavery. First is prostitution, human trafficking, debt slaves, child marriages, forced laborers, child soldiers, and the group called Restivex. These are children in Haiti who are forced into slavery. The next video will show the problem with
Wait, that you just take a step.
Le système ça. Reste avec. Est-ce que vous l'avez reste avec? Non.
So, the process of enslaving a person is fivefold. First of all, the person is promised a good job in poverty-stricken areas. They are then taken from that area, relocated to an area where they do not have any support. They are then forced to work for the rest of their lives. Sometimes that's 6 years, sometimes more. If the person escapes, then they are often without any help fighting powerful influences in the area. They are then either forced to go back into slavery, or because they are addicted to drugs and are desperate for food, they will be forced to go to beg. What is slavery? Slavery is being held against your will, being unable to walk away because of the threat of violence, being kept away from the public, and giving insufficient health conditions. Number of slaves is estimated up to 30 million slaves. So let's look at some facts about worldwide slavery. First of all, there are more slaves today than ever before. The value of slaves has decreased. Slavery still exists in the United States. Slavery is hidden behind different names. Human trafficking is now described as the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world. To buy back all bonded laborers out of slavery would cost as little as $40 per family. Many slavery-produced product goods reach your home without your ever knowing it. Each person's actions affects the impact of slavery. Globally, the average cost of a slave is between $90 and $140. Trafficking primarily involves exploitation, which comes in many forms, including forcing victims into prostitution, subjecting victims to slavery, involuntary servitude, and compelling victims to commit sex acts for the purpose of creating pornography. According to some estimates, approximately 80% of trafficking involves sexual exploitation and 19% involves labor exploitation. There are approximately 20 to 30 million slaves in the world today. According to the U.S. State Department, between 600 and 800,000 people are trafficked across international borders every year. More than 70% are female and half are children. We will now look at some personal stories of slaves.
During sex, I was crying and begging him to stop, but he didn't listen. Then he put his hand on my mouth like this. I couldn't breathe, and I was crying, but he used me anyway. And I just cried. My age is 8.
The practice of child marriage is common in many parts of the world. It's not exclusive to any particular religion or society. Despite laws that forbid it, long-held cultural traditions die hard. If the current trend continues, more than 100 million more young girls will be married over the next decade.
They were decorating my hands with nugs, but I didn't know they were going to marry me off. Then my mother came in and said, "Come on, my daughter." They were dressing me up and I was asking, "Where are you taking me?" They just said, "Come, come," and then they performed the wedding.
This is a story of a child bride who was punished by her master or her husband for some action.
I was a woman exchanged for someone else's wrongdoing. My father-in-law and my husband, they were all with the Taliban. My father-in-law took me out of the house to a mountain. I thought they would kill me or behead me. I did not think he would cut my nose and my ears. The blood came over my eyes. I didn't know where the blood was coming from.
Maps of the affected areas. If you take a look at this, many of the areas are in India and in Africa. However, Haiti does have the rest of X. If you look at the center in India, of the approximately 29.8 million slaves, about half of them, 13.9, less than half, are in India. So how can you change their future into freedom? Here are some examples of call to actions, personal videos of stories. Here are some actions that people have taken, including enforcing slave laws that exist, buying them back, and also exposing the practice of slavery, which, once it's exposed, generally will disappear. Films and books regarding slavery. Some factual references that this video was drawn from, and picture citations.